normal people become terrified of criminals.
Shots were just fired. Police just came out and told us, and we're headed there right now.
They become terrified of their own government.
Mr. Ramaswamy, are you persuaded by President Zelensky's urgent new plea? Where do you stand on more funding?
I'm absolutely unpersuaded. Yes. I'm actually enjoying watching the Ukraine Hawks quietly, delicately tiptoe back from their position as this thing has unwound into a disaster.
You forgot to say in their heels.
The first half of this race, I was the only person standing for it. Now they're actually quietly coming around to being more cautious, as they should. Level with the American people here. Ukraine is not a paragon of democracy. This is a country that has banned 11 opposition parties.
Yes.
It has consolidated all media into one state TV media arm. That's not democratic. It has threatened not to hold elections this year unless the U.S. forks over more money. That is not democratic. It has celebrated a Nazi in its ranks, the comedian in cargo pants, a man called Zelensky, doing it in their own ranks. That is not democratic. More facts for you that you won't hear from the mainstream in either party or the mainstream media. The regions of Ukraine that are occupied by Russia right now, in the Donbass, Luhansk, Donetsk. These are Russian-speaking regions that have not even been part of Ukraine since 2014, that other people probably couldn't name those provinces for you.
The majority do want to be Russian in those regions.
And sort of frame this as some kind of battle between good versus evil, don't buy it. And I'd like the likes of the sharpest of the Warhawks on Ukraine, Nikki Haley, to have some accountability and answer. Do you want to use U.S. taxpayer money to fund the banning of Christians? That is actually what's happening. They're using the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. They have banned them. The Ukrainian parliament just did this last week, supported by our dollars. And I think you owe it to the American people, Nikki, to at least this one time.
Ramaswamy,
he's taking her out.
Banning of Christians.
Mr. Ramaswamy, thank you. Mr. Ramaswamy, thank you. We asked the questions. Ambassador Haley, what's your take on more funding
Let's hear the
for
response.
Ukraine?
Let's see.
We asked the questions.
I am telling you, Putin and President Xi are salivating at the thought that someone like that could become president. They would love to see that.
Oh, please.
So this is what I will tell you.
We're driving Russia into China.
It's not the 90s anymore.
You had your time to talk. The ambassador has the floor.
Thank you. The first thing I'll tell you is we all remember what that thug did when he invaded Ukraine. We all know that 500,000 people have died because of Putin. And here is a freedom-loving, pro-American country that is fighting for its survival and its democracy. No, I don't think we should give them cash. I think we should give them the equipment and the ammunition to win. And I'll tell you, if Biden had done it when they first asked for it, this war would be over.
But
let's also remember this.
The massive cap. That is
when you left Afghanistan in shambles and left them with a ton of weapons and money, it's not that we left, it's how we left. When you look at Ukraine,
I agree with that.
Don't think for a second, now everybody wants to move away from Ukraine. They'll want to move away from Israel a year from now. America
we wanted to move away. No, we wanted to move away from Ukraine right away, immediately. We wanted to not ever move in.
Now is the time to get partnerships.
But I'm okay with cutting funding to other countries.
This unholy alliance between Russia, Ukraine, and China is real. There is a reason the Taiwanese want us to support the Ukrainians. It's because they know that China is coming after them next. There is a reason Ukrainians want us to support Israelis, because they know that if Iran wins, Russia wins.
Ambassador,
we have to see the combination of the three.
Ambassador,
we can't keep funding wars all over the world. That's her argument. Is it, hey, this other country is going to want our money and this other one, and if we don't give our money to this one, then the next one's going to be worried they won't get our money. It's like none of them should be getting our money.
It's boilerplate neocon.
And she was like, I don't want to give them money. I want to give them arms and equipment. Like, how are you going to pay for that stuff? Our money.
This is the price we pay for being the
Chris Christie is trying to do this like solemn, somber.
He uses Lester's name over and over again.
He did the Donald Duck, and that flopped. So now he's trying to do the I must be serious.
Mike Pence.
Shut up, dude.
And they are all working to support Russia right now.
My advice to Chris Christie is to cut the carbs.
And the reason they're doing it is because dictators work together. People who believe in democracy work together.
1 gram of carbohydrate in this
with
spin
all of
drift here.
those that are standing up for democracy and freedom in this world. And by the way, let's remind everybody of this. In 1992, this country made a promise to Ukraine. We said if you return nuclear missiles that were part of the old Soviet Union to Russia and they invade you, we will protect you.
He is correct.
An American promise that's 31 years old is no different than an American promise that's made tonight on this stage. We need to stand by it. And those of us who forget history are doomed to repeat it And
that's right. I'm trying to remember the history of Iraq and Afghanistan.
The absolute giving in to dictators, which is being suggested on this stage, just shows the immaturity of the approach.
Peace is not giving in to dictators.
I love how they think peace and wanting peace is immature. And they're like, why don't you want to bomb more people and kill more 18-year-olds? That's mature.
Any suggestion by Zelensky or anyone else that we're going to eventually have U.S. troops there, I can tell the American people when I'm president, that will not happen. We are not going to send your sons and daughters to Ukraine. I am going to send troops to our southern border. If you look at the threats that we face, terrorists have come in through our southern border. I'm going to shut it down. I'm going to have the military, and I'm going to deport the people who've come, particularly under Biden, who've come from the Middle East, come from all these places. Now, Biden wants $105 billion. 60, most of that's Ukraine, including some of it going to pay pensions for bureaucrats and salaries. That is a totally ridiculous use of American tax dollars. He says he has money for border to try to do, and the media repeat that. When you look at it, what most of the money is money to process more illegal aliens into this country. How is that solving the problem? That's making the problem worse. And what does he do for the Indo-Pacific? A pittance. That is the top threat that we face. We need to bring this war to an end. We need the Europeans to step up and do their fair share. And we need to get serious about the top threat that this country faces, which is the Chinese Communist Party.
So if I may respond to the Ukraine question.
In fact, we are going to go from the hot wars in
Is Vivek the only war skeptic?
Apparently, yeah. I mean, Ron is doing a dance. You know, he's dancing between, and I hate that more than anything.
Many
You've got to dig your feet in and pick a side.
Right.
General Secretary Xi is an existential threat to the United States. The flashpoint is Taiwan. For decades and decades, the American military, but primarily the United States Navy, has deterred an attack from China to the island state of Taiwan. But Ronald Reagan's Navy of 600 ships is gone. Now, the question to you is, and I'll start with you, Ambassador Haley, because you were in President Trump's cabinet. His goal was a 355-ship Navy. That's what he pushed for. He got to 300. It's now at 291.
Wow.
Is that big enough to deter and, if necessary, defeat an invasion of Taiwan?
China has the largest naval fleet in the world. They have 350 ships. They'll have 400 ships in 2 years. We won't even have 350 ships in 2 decades. China has built up their military. It's not just land, air, and sea. They're doing cyber. They're doing artificial intelligence. They're doing space.
She is right.
America needs to modernize our military. We need to do everything we can. The first thing is you go and you make sure you have the backs of Ukraine. That's why the Taiwanese want us to support Ukraine, because they know that sends the biggest message to China. The second thing is we go to China and we start being tough on them. No more sales of our American soil to China, and let's take back what they've already stolen. Then you go and you to the universities. No more having millions of dollars go to our universities. Then we will go and end all formal trade relations with China until they stop murdering Americans from fentanyl, something Ron has yet to say that he's going to do. And then we modernize our military. When we strengthen our military, when we modernize it with the focus of cyber, artificial intelligence, and space, when we make sure that we have the backs of our friends, whether it's in Israel, whether it's in Ukraine, and we should be arming Taiwan. Make sure they have the equipment they need. Make sure they have the training they need now. There's nothing China fears more than knowing that America will have Taiwan's back. Let's make sure that we show it by making sure they have the equipment they need.
I will say ships are much more vulnerable now than they ever have been.
Hypersonic missiles.
And I'm much more concerned with us advancing in space. Like, let's dominate space because ships are really going to be more and more vulnerable over time with drones and everything else.
President Xi's ambitions. And if China is able to be the world's leading superpower, that will affect you and your family in ways that are going to be very bad. They will export authoritarianism all around the world as the cost of doing business. They will impose things like social credit scores and internet monitoring. So this is,
literally,
to this generation, what the Soviet Union was to the post-World War II generation.
We got the EIP
thing.
We're
going to get to 355 ships at the end of the first term, 385 ships at the end of the second term, but we're going to have a path to 600 ships over the next 20 years. I think the future of freedom is going to be determined in the Indo-Pacific. We have a strategy not just military, but decoupling from the economy and fighting them here at home with their cultural. You know, Ambassador Haley said somehow I wasn't doing. She welcomed them into South Carolina, gave them land near a military base, wrote the Chinese ambassador a love letter saying what a great friend they were. That was like their number one way to do economic development. In Florida, I banned China from buying land in this state.
Also true.
And we kicked out on our universities, and we kicked the Confucius Institutes out of our universities. We've recognized the threat, and we've acted swiftly.
He did do a great job on Florida.
He needs to fire his campaign staff.
Yes. That's the biggest problem.
I know.
He was has been a fantastic governor. His campaign has been just a disaster. Had he done what Vivek has done, which is don't offend Trump voters, don't offend Trump supporters, embrace them.
And attack the corruption.
Go on Rogan and Elon
He
Musk.
would be in such a different place right now. Totally different
If
conversation.
they put Will Chamberlain in charge of his PR and got rid of the existing ones, he could have been on the show way higher.
Will would have killed it. I mean, he'd be doing such a great job running that campaign.
In the midst of trying to back our strongest ally. In Eastern Europe, we've seen our resources and our weaponry help degrade the Russian military. The Indo-Pacific, we have real challenges. The long-term threat is China. Immediate threat is our southern border. In order for us to have the military to fight 3 different continents at the exact same time, we are going to have to invest heavily in our military, but we're also going to have to invest heavily in an industrial base so that we can hit our objectives from a military perspective, not only with our ships, but also with our planes. We are so old as a military that in order for us to recalibrate, we're going to have to invest. One of the things I do in my Made in America strategy is we create more than 4 million new jobs by having high-tech manufacturing come back to America, decoupling from China, so that we focus our attention on creating that industrial revolution that will be necessary.
Maybe y'all should have not fired unvaccinated soldiers.
Tim Scott should not be on stage right now.
No. Keep him as a senator, you know, if they want him there in South Carolina. Seems like a nice guy, but he's so out of his depth for president.
How big would the fleet get?
First answer is end the toxic divest to invest program. For people who don't know about that, we're decommissioning ships in the South China Sea. The foundation of war is economics. Rebuild our defense industrial base at home. But here's the dirty little secret. Our actual defense industrial base depends on China for the supply chain, for the F-35 jets, for the ships that we're building. Think about this. Why are we stockpiling that if it isn't to actually be strong against our enemy, China? We depend on them for that. Just like we depend on them for pharmaceuticals, just like we depend on them for semiconductors. So here's why we can't get tough with China. It's because we depend on them for our modern way of life, and we have to declare economic independence from our enemy. That's the Declaration of Independence that Thomas Jefferson, at the age of 33, would have signed. And today, if he were alive, that's the Declaration of Independence that I will sign as the next president.
He's done
I do have to recognize
job.
that Ron DeSantis was correct about acknowledging Nikki Haley's tough talk when she was ambassador to the UN, calling China our great friend, bringing the CCP to South Carolina.
Yes.
What he left out, though, Ron, and be honest about it, there was a lobbying-based exemption in that bill that allowed Chinese nationals to buy land within a 20-mile radius of a military base lobbied for by one of your donors. So I think we have to call a spade a spade. We need politicians who are independent of the forces that increase our dependence on China. My message to Xi Jinping is this. You are done buying land in this country. You will not donate to universities in this country. U.S. businesses won't expand into the Chinese market until you play by the ssame set of rules.
Mr. Ramaswamy,
You're kicked out
that
of the
almost
WTO,
sounds like rules for if you love your country.
Accountability for the COVID-19 pandemic financially, which unleashed hell on the world. We have to hold them accountable.
You have a number.
That almost sounds like policy for loving your country.
We need to increase our naval capacity by at least 20% over the course of the next several years. And be able to meet our AUKUS agreement standards. Right now, we are at risk of not even being able to meet our AUKUS standards with Australia and the UK. So what we need to do is have a plan that reverses the trajectory of the divest to invest program
I'd like to
by 20% over the next 3 years.
Governor Christie?
You know, my first observation, Hugh, is that nobody answers your
Hugh, let me get personal with you.
My second observation is these three in the middle think they're the enemy. I know China is the enemy, and that's what we should be focused on. So let's be really clear. The nuclear submarines in this United States Navy is the greatest deterrent to Chinese aggression, and that is the first place I would go to increase American naval power. Our nuclear submarines are able to move stealthily, quietly, and effectively, and if we are going to deter China from invading Taiwan, the only way we're going to do it is to make sure that they don't know whether how many nuclear submarines from the United States of America are in the South China Sea and in that area and ready to strike on them if they decide to move on Taiwan. And so we, as our first priority, need to go directly to our nuclear sub program, Hugh, and we need to increase it drastically. That would be priority number one. Ships would come next, but to me, the ships are secondary choice here. The submarines are the single most important thing that we could be deterring, that we could be using to deter China.
This is like
but the other thing we could do to deter China is to let them know that the blood money they're spending for Russia in Ukraine right now will not be effective, that we send Putin home with his tail between his legs and make them understand that the same fate waits for them if they decide to move towards Taiwan with a more aggressive nuclear sub-program. We'll be able to make that threat real.
Thank you, Governor. We're going to take a brief pause now, and we'll be back to the Republican
I don't know that
presidential
we need more subs to have a legitimate threat, nuclear threat. We already have subs. I don't think that it's a terrible idea to have more nuclear subs.
The Trump rally just won't play.
And keep in mind, the Chinese have nuclear subs on our West Coast.
I don't know if that's actually true.
I would be shocked if they didn't.
Well, are there more people watching the Trump rally?
No, 7,700, and GOP debate's about 70K. But I can't. It's probably because it won't play.
The stream won't play.
So wild.
Yeah,
I
that
think
is what it is.
We can start recycling 95% of our spent nuclear fuel through closed system recycling systems, and just have so much more. I mean, nuclear powered submarines is definitely the way, with nuclear warheads ready.
Nuclear power in general is such a massive opportunity for America.
They haven't talked about graphene, which we're going to start. If we're going to reindustrialize our Navy, it's going to be with lightweight graphene materials and hydrogen fuel and nuclear power. These are the things that none of them got specific. I know they're limited with time, and that's why the president usually has science advisors to advise them on those things. But we
are you gunning for that job, Ian?
Yeah. Gunning. I like that.
You're
that
gunning
metaphor.
for it.
Yeah. I'm going to help the U.S. Navy become the greatest on Earth. I want ships that can go from underwater into outer space and back again.
Oh, I'm with you on that. I told you my concern is space. As long as we're able to get up there, I'm happy.
Man, super lightweight submarines that can go up into orbit.
Energy
cool to me.
tech. We need better propulsion technology, better energy conversion technology, things like that.
Yes.
Yeah, like what, plutonium?
No, I don't know about
I defer to the nuclear scientists.
That stuff's very heavy.
Remember, nuclear subs are just, it's just used to heat water. It's just a steam engine. So the tech for nuclear sub to make the rotor spin is going to be significantly different to what would be necessary to actually have propulsion that can defeat.
It's easy because they're floating.
Like piezoelectric power, where you actually can vibrate substrates to create electrical current. That's so you don't actually need steam. Like that's the next step of energy production.
I don't know how that would transfer
fusion
into
reactors,
getting out to space.
It would be lighter weight than having fuel on board or something, or like hydrogen fuel.
Well, somebody already knows how to do it. Have you guys seen these videos from the UFO files the government's been slowly putting out, that some of these have gone into the ocean? They visually confirmed, the pilots have seen them go into the ocean and come out. I mean, somebody's figured it out. I don't know who it is.
It's not hard to make an air and sea vehicle.
Yeah.
So we already have planes that can land on water. You could probably. I don't think it's a great feat of engineering to figure out how to make something that's
to submerge it and then come back out.
You know what I mean?
I think at the speeds they're doing it and everything is really what they've been impressed by.
That's the biggest problem is if you're talking about getting into space, breaking Earth's gravity is really, really, really hard.
Yeah.
You have to be, it's 20,000 miles an hour is the speed you need to be to get out of Earth's gravity.
They've got those spin launch systems. Have you seen those where they'll get it spinning really fast and you can get materials up really easy?
Yeah.
Slingshot, basically. It spins around and then boom, straight up in the air. Mm-hmm. That's cool.
Looks so cool.
And then another thing they do is they'll bring a plane as high up as possible and launch from the plane so that it cuts down on a lot of the energy usage. But ultimately the plan is get everything on the moon. You build a moon base. This is what it was. This is the Artemis project, right?
Yeah.
You build a moon base so that you slowly transport energy and materials up there, and then you can launch for further missions.
Yeah, they're working on the space elevator on the moon. Liftport is the company with Michael Lane. He used to work at NASA, and they're aiming at doing it on the moon first because of the low gravity. It's easier to get the elevator up and running.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.